episode 48 of the Potomac RPG Podcast. Well, if it were up to me, I'd just smash right through that brick wall.
Welcome one and all to the Potomac RPG Podcast, your source for old news, tired conversation, and mediocre advice for all of your favorite tabletop role-playing games. I'm your host and integral NPC, accidentally killed by a fireball, Adam.
And I'm your diabolical grand reveal that never gets played out, Sarah.
Sara, welcome to the show. I believe this is our first two-person episode that we've ever done. Trying it out. You know, we're coming up on big episode 50, so trying to space some things out before we get to the year-end episode. But it's nice to spend some one-on-one time getting to know what's going through your head when it comes to D&D. And specifically, I think this topic that we have today is going to be right up your alley. But first, we had a session last night. Our descent into Avernus continues, and Sara, it doesn't seem like we're getting any better at this game, does it?
I think we're actually getting worse.
We're getting worse.
We we know our mistakes and we talk strategy and we're never going to do that again. And then the next episode or the next session, we go ahead and we do it again. We split up the group.
Well, nothing ever bad happens when you split party. Yeah. Well, what I don't understand is the first player death that we had was Ben's character Porto, who did end up coming back, and he died by basically scouting ahead, and then when they ran into trouble, getting further away from us. And sure enough, in last night's session, Porto goes exploring or scouting ahead, gets surrounded by mobs, and starts to move the opposite way, away from the rest of us. Meanwhile, Matt's character and Nick's character, they circle around to try to get into the front door, and they trigger a whole nother set of enemy combatants. So yes, we had 3 different battles happening at once. My character, of course, ended up just falling down, not engaging in any kind of combat whatsoever, but being blinded by a sleet storm, falling on the ground and crawling away. So very exciting combat.
It could be a lesson in what not to do. We should show it in high schools for people who want to start D&D.
Yeah. Well, I can say this. At the end of all of that combat, I had not lost a hit point. So I think I did pretty well in that scenario.
Yeah, and even though we were all slipping all over the place and blind thanks to Porto's spell, at least so were the bad guys. And I think we survived because of that, because they could not get their balance or come at us or even find us. That we were definitely very vulnerable.
Yeah, Porto's sleet storm saved everybody, despite how difficult it made it on the players. Without that, I think we could have easily had 2 to 3 character deaths last night for sure. It was that bad. So
it was really bad.
It was really bad, but
so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very enjoyable. I love the social interaction we had at the end too. It's really nice to be able to balance that hardcore combat with some dialogue, some social interactions, and kind of fleshing out story. So I think Steve did a really good job with that last night. It was a great session. But speaking of story, we always start off campaigns with high hopes, with our plot hooks are ready, our overarching story, a detailed world, and then players come along like us and muck everything up with their crazy decision making and questionable morality. And that can sometimes lead to a dead end, which can be pretty scary for a DM. So that's what we're going to be talking about today: campaign dead ends and how to get out of them. Now, Sara, as a writer, you're used to having control over how a story plays out, but when you have other people making plot-affecting choices, suddenly you have no idea where it's going to lead. So what's some general advice for getting out of a dead-end plot?
Oh, yeah. So I don't know that there's one answer to rule them all when it comes to this, because I've been the DM in this position, and I don't even necessarily know if what I'm going to recommend would have helped me in that particular situation. But I do think that it's really hard to do on the fly, but if you can always center around your through line of the campaign, which is what is the underlying theme of this particular adventure, and how can you sort of keep that going while you try to tie people back to either the main arc or create a new arc that circles back or something like that, so that you can still maintain some sense of like familiarity and immersion for them, while trying to build the pieces back together. And I honestly can't tell you that this would be something you could do on the fly. It's almost like we would need to stall a little bit or be creative, right? And then between sessions, really figure out where you're going to drop the clues, because clue reveals are so hard to do and they have to be metered. And when you're doing a homebrew, I mean, things could really, really go off the rails because it hasn't been play tested yet, right? Yeah. You haven't found all those vulnerabilities. So I guess that's my advice. Be creative, stall, stick to what the theme is. So like, for example, if you're playing in like a Game of Thrones world, the theme would probably be power struggle, right? Every scene in that book is all about how someone is either keeping power, trying to get power, or prevent someone from getting power. And so you could do like a little mini arc that's kind of like centered around that sort of those clashes and get them back to the main line. And it still feel like it's part of the story. Maybe it wasn't as necessary. Maybe there's something you can bring in or an NPC that you could bring in that would help pad that way back to the main story. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the only thing I can think of. And I wish you all luck because this is a really, really hard situation.
I like your idea of stalling, though. And like a kind of a mantra for me is delay, delay, delay. There's no need for you to make a real hard choice in the middle of a session. Like you can find things, whether it's a simple encounter or a side quest or something, to give yourself some time to figure this out. I agree completely, Sarah. This is not something you just want to pencil whip as you go. This is going to take some thought. Once you find yourself in a dead end, it's going to take some work to get out of it, but you can get out of it. And I think another thing to look at is making the world bigger than the players. We have a tendency with our games to, the players are the heroes, the all powerful, characters who go around and kill a bunch of stuff, and they're just so big within the story. Well, the smaller you make those characters in comparison to the powers around them, the more options you're going to have in terms of getting out of a campaign dead end, because there's going to be, like you said, political struggle, power struggle, innumerable factions that can be at odds with each other that you can kind of pluck on those strings a little bit. And that might help get you out of that dead end. So make the characters small would kind of be my advice to get out of that. It's not a save the world from the apocalypse. Make it smaller. See what happens with that. But let's get into some questions and dig into this topic a little bit more. Our first post this week comes from Reddit user Gamer for Life, who asks, okay, so this is a long, you know what? I'll tell you what, Sarah, I'm going to read the first. I'll be back in
15 minutes.
Yeah, and then... I'm going to make you do some work this episode. So I'll read the first part, you read the second part. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. So context. My campaign was going fine, and I had everything planned out until I noticed it getting a bit long, and then a player also mentioned about it. I then decided to straight up pull the strings together and end the campaign in the next story arc of my game. However, at the same time, I wanted to learn from my mistakes and not have useless side arc characters that never appear again, and I decided to do a smooth transition from this arc, let's call it the dragon arc, to the next ending arc. Dragon arc was all about this dragon that had been terrorizing the country the players are in, and the players had a personal objective from before colliding with this problem, and they decided to solve it while they were at it. The dragon was being manipulated by a cult and without their presence, the dragon would have lived his life peacefully in isolation. When I thought about the smooth transition, I thought that the cult would have some even greater plans for the dragon, and I already revealed to the players that this cult had a good god backing them. Also, the main cultist is a recurring villain, now thrice reborn.
All right, so the problem, and now the dead end where I don't know what to do. I had in mind that in the upcoming fight, the villain would teleport himself and the dragon away so they could use it to unleash their even greater plan. But I have no idea what the greater plan would be and how in the hell the dragon terrorizing the countryside factors into that great plan. Did they train the dragon? Did the dragon do that terrorizing just randomly as he escaped? This feels cheap, by the way. Only thing I know for certain, that the great plan should have something to do with the god backing the cult, but I'm again in a dead end. In my world, the dragons are godlike creatures, the older ones being as strong or stronger than the strongest of gods. And it sure would be useful for a god to have a pet dragon. But even then, the dragon in question is still young. What could the god do with the dragon to achieve his or hers greater goal? The god wants world domination and all of the world to worship him or her. How does the previous terrorizing work into this? Basically, how in the hell do I get myself out of this mess? I don't want to retcon anything. I'm proud of anything I have come up with. I just don't see a way out of this at the moment. I just need some advice to get my brain working again.
All right. So a bit of a long one here, but that's all right. Now, Sarah, kind of going through this question, Gamer for Life is stuck in this situation where he doesn't know what the greater plan of this is going to be. Do you have any advice or any ideas of where this could lead?
I have some, not knowing everything that's happened. I don't know if it'll be the one that resolves it, but the god is driving the cultists who are driving the dragon, and the dragon is terrorizing right now. So there's some sort of end result from that terrorizing. And so I started thinking, I'm like, well, maybe this god wants fear. Like there's some sort of benefit of people being terrified and fearful. There could be like a political motivation, but I wanted to go another way. Like maybe this god feeds off of like fear and the fact that it has a dragon working for him or her, that somehow there's some sort of benefit to this kind of hierarchy. And I was like, maybe this dragon has some special lineage, and maybe this god who wants fear, who craves it, who finds that to be the power, is afraid of whatever this dragon could be. So dominating this dragon is very, very important to this guy, especially since dragons are supposed to be almost godlike, right? Mm-hmm. So make that dragon really, really special and extraordinary, because it sounds like it's going also against its will a little bit if the cultists have to be involved to make it do this. I think there's might be something in there to explore. I would also recommend that it was mentioned that there was an initial problem that the characters are trying to solve that kind of bumped up against this story. I think it would be great if there's a way to bring whatever they were trying to solve back to sort of help kind of align with how it is that they figure out that what's really going on with this god. It's a great way to tie like the beginning towards the end, and extra bonus points if they did something to resolve that problem that actually made it harder for them to resolve it at the end. So so they're kind of made their own destiny a little bit more difficult, but it makes it more personal too.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that idea. One thought I had was, if this god is bent on world domination, and I don't know how it fits into the lore of this particular campaign, but there's stories all over about gods taking material form, and if a god were to take form, on Prime, I think a dragon would be a great host for such a thing. So maybe the greater plan isn't just this dragon terrorizing the countryside, but rather as a host for this god to come down on Faerun or wherever it is you are. And that's how the world domination is going to occur, because it has taken actual physical form. And that could be the bigger story. Now, keep in mind, that's a big story. That's epic in nature. And the one thing I worry about is, right at the top, you're like, hey, my campaign was going too long, so I'm trying to shorten it up. Well, this ain't going to shorten it up because that's huge. But it does put more of a focus on what the end game is in terms of where those players are heading. So maybe if you limit the side quests and tangent kind of stuff, maybe they can focus a bit more on this primary goal of stopping that transfer from happening or dealing with it if it does occur. So there's a nice big fork there, maybe initially to stop. And then if they fail, now it's okay, how do we kill a god dragon? Which actually, that sounds pretty cool. I like that idea.
Yeah, I like your idea better. Yeah.
No. We're all equal here. All ideas are equally good. But no, that's a couple ideas. I wish we had a bit more context in terms of the players mentioning that they thought it was getting a bit long. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder, just from what this person said, whether it's not so much that it's wrong or too long, but a little too all over the place.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because I've never really been in a campaign where I'm like, this is going too long. It's more about like pacing and reveals and changing up the polarity of like encounters. So like, by polarity I mean like if we are left in a good place at the end of the last session, then we need to kind of like before, as things get going, end up in like a bad place for a little bit. Like you got to change like the
you have to screw over your players on occasion.
Yeah. If it's too safe, if it's too much of the same, if it's too much of the same fighting, it gets monotonous. So, and I feel like I don't think that the campaign is too long. I think that if your world is rich enough, people are going to love exploring it. Like we were in Baldur's Gate for like, I don't know, 3 months. And it was really, really fun to kind of explore all the different areas. And we still had encounters, but we got to know the city and some of the politics of the city. And that was like fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking back on the things that we did in Baldur's Gate, and I like your idea of changing it up. Yeah, it can't be the same thing, because we had your typical dungeon crawl part, but we also had some pretty in-depth social encounters. We had some really intense intra-party issues, specifically between Tormid and Andreas, rest in peace, and also the other members of the party for an act that we did that apparently we weren't supposed to do, and that pissed off one of the characters in the party. So it was this whole thing, a lot of drama. But because it was a mix of all that kind of stuff, it never felt like we were there too long,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that even if you are into like, beating up monsters and, doing it over and over again, like the same kind of encounter. And I'm not just talking like, like dungeon crawl after dungeon crawl after dungeon crawl. That's gonna get old. But if it's like dungeon crawl and then you have a political showdown with like an NPC who like turns on you, and then you go into some other thing that kind of makes the divide in the group a little bit. Like these are different sorts of tension that are going to keep people awake. And it's kind of like changing the color on your PowerPoint, or the occasional slide, you know what I'm saying? Just kind of keeps people up and interested and thinking about different things.
Because when I think about having fun in games, I think about PowerPoint, right, Sarah?
Right, exactly.
Well, and just to kind of reiterate for Gamer for Life, what worries me is you feel it's going a little long. Your player mentioned it. Like whatever you decide to do, like go for it, because what worries me is not so much the player, but you. It feels like you're like, all right, let's just wrap this up. Let's just wrap this up. And that kind of, I don't want to say apathy, but you have this urge to get to the end, so drive towards it, because unless something exciting happens that kind of changes your mind, you don't want something that you're not fully enjoying drawing out too long, because that's not going to be fun for you, not going to be fun for your players. So if you truly feel that, hey, I just want this thing to end, drive towards it, and have that be the primary focus. No side stuff, just get right to the action. So that would would be my advice. But hopefully those ideas help for you, Gamer for Life. I would love to hear how your campaign ends up wrapping up.
I have news here.
And the sound of Ralphie, the news goblin, can mean only one thing. It's time for Potomac RPG News. So this week is a story about dice, specifically Pixels, the electronic dice over on Kickstarter right now. This thing has been popping off since it went up. Hell, I even saw it on Colbert the other night, which shocked the hell out of me. I mean, I know Colbert's, big D&D guy,
One
Lord
of
of the Rings.
One
of us. But to see it pop up on his show, I was like, holy crap. And another awesome thing that I didn't realize at first, these people are local. This is out of Rockville, I believe, Maryland, which is just down the road from us. So you got some local people doing such a cool project. But basically, just to kind of give you an idea what this is, these are dice that light up. They're really something to see. It's really crazy. The LEDs inside them can be programmed to light up a certain way. They can be connected by Bluetooth to sync up with your phone, and with D&D Beyond for online rolling. They're balanced to roll fairly, and best yet, it has a wireless charging dock to keep those things lit up forever. So, Sarah, simple question: how many of these are you going to buy?
I would probably get like 3 sets. Because I'm one of those people who likes to have a special set for their character, and that character will always belong to that set. So I tend to accrue them. But
I hope you got your checkbook ready, because the price tag is steep. If you want just your 7 die set, we're not even talking about like the 12 or 13 die sets that you come across. A regular old 7 die is going to run you $200.
Oh, I didn't look at the price.
So
I'm going to have to find a really special character whom I don't expect to die, quite soon.
Wow. Like this is going to be a 1 die to rule them all situation in my mind. Now, 1 die costs $40, which is, that's a lot of money to spend on a single die, and obviously that would likely be a D20. I don't see why you'd spend that kind of money on a D6 or a caltrop of D4. So what do you think about that price tag? $40 for 1 D20.
I think that for a fan, it's steep, but it's not gonna break them. They're still gonna get it because they're a fan. They want to collect dice. Especially in this day and age when we're almost exclusively playing online across the globe. Mm-hmm. The fact that it connects to D&D Beyond, like you can still throw real weight, right? And it'll show up on D&D Beyond. Like that's really cool. So like you can still get I assume it hooks with the group tabulation that D&D Beyond introduced.
I would hope.
So other people can see what you've rolled, but you don't have to like sit there. I like fumble and I click and all that. I like that it does the math for me on D&D Beyond, but like the fact that it will, I don't know, just sync up. I think that's really awesome. Plus with the lighting and they're careful about the weight. In like 3 years when we're meeting face to face, when a lot of us are, I don't know if it's going to get as much use other than being really, really colorful. And if you have like a flamboyant kind of character, you should throw those LED dice, because you'd be like, yes, here's my fireball. But then you'd have to spend like $1,000 to get your 8 or 10 D6.
Yeah. Now I do have to make a quick correction, because I scrolled down. I had heard the D&D Beyond. That is not officially supported yet. They're discussing potential integration with D&D Beyond and Fantasy Grounds, but they do have an agreement with Roll20 and Foundry to ensure that Pixels are supported. So it's still fingers crossed on D&D Beyond, but I think if Pixels really wants this to take off, boy, if they have that integration with D&D Beyond, especially after this past year and kind of how much it's blown up, boy, would that do a number for them. Not that they need much help. Like, I don't know if you've looked at this page to see what the numbers are. These people are absolutely crushing it. Right now, they're sitting at nearly 20,000 backers and a pledge total of $2.7 million. And they still have 18 days left. Like, can you imagine what this is going to be for Light Up Dice, what it's going to be by the end of this?
Oh, yeah.
Absolute insanity. Whew.
Yeah, and I'm hoping too, like maybe through iterations they can drop that price, because obviously there's a lot of fan base for this, right? There's people are seeing a need, or they're loving the color, or I mean, it just makes me want to disco some of these, some of the way these laid up. They're fantastic. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not a dice goblin, so I don't get too super excited about this kind of stuff. But I gotta admit, it's pretty cool. The first time, like I think Steve shared it to everybody, I was like, all right, cool. It's Light Up Dice. Yeah, how long until the battery dies? Oh, it's wireless charging. Oh, it can connect via Bluetooth. Like, holy crap! Like, this is great. And then even weight wise, it apparently falls somewhere between your normal like resin dice and the metal dice. It's not as heavy as metal, but not as light as your standard die. So it's right in the middle. So it should have some nice heft without, gouging your table every time that you roll it. So really, really interesting. I'm wishing the best for these people. I hope it really does well. I mean, it's already doing well. They don't need my well wishes, but if you are interested, I will have the link up in the show notes. Check it out. You got 18 days left to go, 17 by the time this airs tomorrow. Plenty of time to get in there, get your full set, or hell, they even have pledge levels going up to like 3 or 4 sets if you want to, take out a second mortgage, perhaps, maybe, finance this through your bank. I'm sure they'd approve that loan, no problem. So check it out if you're interested, but we're going to take a step out for a moment. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. When we were first getting this podcast together, we knew we needed some good music. And we looked into a lot of options that are out there, but we settled on Soundstripe. At soundstripe.com, they have such a wide variety of high-quality music to choose from. Every song that you hear on this podcast is from Soundstripe, and we couldn't be happier with what they have to offer. And it's not just music. They have a ton of sound effects and video stock footage as well. So if you're making a podcast or videos on YouTube, or have some creative project you're working on, check out Soundstripe. They're worth a look. And right now you can use the promo code Potomac RPG, all one word, and get 10% off. That's Potomac RPG, all one word, to get 10% off your purchase. Elevate your work with the finest stock media, all in one place at soundstripe.com. And with that, let's get back to the show. All right, how about another post here? This question comes from Reddit user Fortnite Vicent, who asks, how to make a good campaign plot. I'm an extremely new DM, and I'll be going to do my first ever campaign using the D&D 5e format. I've already played a couple 5e campaigns, but nothing extraordinary. The problem that I'm facing is what can I use for the BBEG and how to create the plot for it. Okay,
that sounds like
that's a lot right there. That's like everything. The history is pretty simple. I didn't want to overwhelm them since we are all new to 5e. The world suffered attacks from demons and devils, and since the attacks appeared to be random, the nation's army couldn't protect all their people. So the guilds were created to be the people's army. The demons' attacks returned to their natural levels, but the guilds were still strong, and the people are beginning to question who should lead, the nation or the guilds. So with that said, I don't know where to go from here to create the plot hook and the BBEG. Do I make another demonic invasion with a Merilith type leading the army, or do I make a coup-like scenario where the guild masters try to take over control and make the players choose a side between the guilds and the government, or even I stick with the quests inside guilds and make the party find their new BBEG in one of the missions. What do I need to think about when creating these things? Okay, Sarah, so really easy, simple question here. I'm sure you'll be able to answer it in one sentence. How does this person go from here to create the entire game?
Yeah, it sounds to me like you have a very interesting world, but you haven't really, you're trying to establish who's going to benefit from this faction versus nation division, and why would they want to foster that division even more? And I think if you can solve for that, that's going to lead to a lot of things. And I don't think it should be the demons necessarily who are going to benefit from it. I think you should have another faction that's involved that will be driving, like, for their benefit. They'll be better, they'll be stronger, they'll have more power, whatever it is that they want. If, say, the nations fall and the guilds become sort of their own uh entities and almost like mini states, right? At the same time, because the nation is weakened, then maybe there's another nation, or outside who's going to try and move in, because there's all this internal conflict, and on top of it, they do have these demons to contend with. Not that other nation isn't also contending with them, but I think that you could make it really, really rich, and I think that the big BBEG might be tied to, being able to stop the demons, and isn't, because he's benefiting from this, or she's benefiting from this. I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
So what you have right now is basically a love triangle of campaign plot. You have 3 factions all at odds with each other, and should one weaken, that opens the door for the other 2. So in terms of the nations versus guilds versus demons, well, if the guilds kind of take over a bit too much power, then the nation's army is weakened, and maybe the demons have more influence. Maybe it's an underhanded thing where either the nations or the guilds actually partner up with the demons and devils to do something. I mean, anytime you have that triangle, you have a great, basically something going on in the background that is going to happen no matter what. So then it's just a matter of how do the players, or how do the characters integrate into that. So that's probably the hardest decision, and one that I struggle with campaigns, is I can come up with the idea of, hey, this is what's going to be going on in the world, but how do you make the characters care about that? So maybe you decide, okay, are these people stuck between all this and they're trying to resolve it? Maybe family members were killed, or their town was destroyed, or blah, blah, blah. Maybe there's personal connections with the guild or with the government that kind of play on this. So a few different areas to look at, though, but you're going to have to pick a spot for those characters to be inserted and to make them care. Like, Sarah, how would you make the characters care about this kind of situation going on?
Oh yeah, I'd make it the stakes personal for the characters. Like, one character is the child of a guild leader, right? So the guild's success is important, especially because maybe there's family directly tied to that success, their lives, right? And then you could, have someone else who's like, like maybe their dad is like a general for the nation, or you know what I'm saying, or like they came from a family of fighters who fought for the nation, and they're very patriotic and stuff. So this is seen as more inner turmoil. You want to kind of keep it, you want to let it kind of rise, like, I don't know, dough between the characters. Don't force it, but you can bring the ties in and let them kind of like, remind them of the stakes if you need to, but let them sort of start to skirmish a bit within the group. That's going to add that level, that level of the extra dimension of reality for your characters, and importance, right? And also, we love it when a character takes a stance when we're reading it, right? Because it says so much about them. It says what they believe, what they're willing to go against their friends for. Think Captain America Civil War, right? Like we had 2 good guys who were fighting, and it was absolutely wonderful to watch. And the characters are going to sharpen each other too, because they're going to have these conversations, or they're going to also try and like get their way, like either through subtext or through like sabotage sometimes, in order to make sure that whatever they want maybe to not happen doesn't happen. The only dangerous thing though is it can get too far, right, Adam? Like you don't want it like so contentious within the group that the group can't function, because then it's no fun for most people. And
maybe you have the group is almost like a Fellowship of the Ring type or something, or a peacekeeping group. Basically they've been tasked with figuring out a solution to this that doesn't resolve in bloodshed or nation versus guild or something like that. And then if you do have those characters with those ties to the different factions, maybe you can play that out without it boiling over into something too serious. Because if you do take a hard stance, guild versus nation, then it's going to be hard to be in the same party. But if you've already been tasked with the mission of finding a resolution, a peaceful resolution, then that gives them a chance to work out these differences in a non-hostile or non-violent way. So it can still be interesting. It can still be like debating back and forth and that kind of social aspect of it. And maybe the way you make these connections in the different factions is through subterfuge or diplomatic relations and stuff like that. There's a lot of different areas you can go. It almost sounds like 14 Knight Vicent. It almost sounds like they've got too many ideas and they're trying to kind of pare it down to, okay, how do I start this? Because I have this big story and all this stuff happening, but where's session 0? And I think that's where those personal connections can really help you find a place to start them off. So hopefully,
you might. And I was just gonna say, you might also make it look like there's just two if you're early on in your story, make it just like two factions are kind of sort of warring, or like the whole thing's together, and then like the whole guild versus nation part really comes out as like almost like a plot point in the storytelling, because that way that what you're going to do then is the characters are expecting things to go one way, nation versus demons, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, like now my loyalty because of X, or my relationship with this person is going to be challenged because now we got guild on the table, and they want a piece.
Yeah, like back up your history a little bit, because like they lay out the history. Well, back it up. So maybe this is still nation v devil, and you're part of this nation's defense or whatever. And that very first act is maybe things getting bad, and suddenly player 2 appears, and they kind of take care of business, and now it's this issue of, well, the guild came in and did all this stuff, and now they want more power, and what am I going to do as part of this nation's army with this new group in here who just kind of saved the day because we couldn't do it, and what do we do there? So maybe back up that history a little bit, instead of saying it's all said and done. Maybe it hasn't happened yet.
Maybe like, Adam, can you imagine if like Milo was a character, right, and was being courted by a guild before you realize what the stakes would eventually become? I miss Milo, right?
So much. I
know
so much.
She's so fabulous.
But well, hopefully that gives you some ideas there. 14 Knight Vicent for some ways you can make your campaign go. I would love to hear what you end up going with. It sounds like a really cool story to kind of dig into. But we've been talking about dead ends and feeling stuck and feeling hopeless most of this episode. So let's lighten things up a little bit here. Listeners, it is time for a palate cleanser. Welcome to the Palate Cleanser. Now, this week we're going to continue with the D&D tag that was started about a month or so ago by Ginny D on YouTube. It's a list of questions everybody can answer about their experiences playing D&D. Now, I've already answered these, as has most of our group, but now it's your turn, Sarah. I think you and Matt are the only ones who haven't answered this yet. So let's find out a little bit more about your D&D past. You ready?
Wait a minute. Can I do a quid pro quo with you, though?
I've already answered these, though.
No, but I would ask my own questions.
Okay, you can ask your own questions. Absolutely, not a problem at all.
Okay.
I can't say that they'll be honest answers, but you can ask the questions all you want. So let's start off with the first question. Sarah, what was your first D&D character?
Siren McLean, and she was a thief.
Ooh, nice. I love the name. It's a great name. All right.
Adam.
Yeah.
When was a moment where you were busted either practicing talking in a character's voice or acting out a character? Has that ever happened?
Every time we have a session, because my kids are roaming around here, walking through my video shot every time. Meanwhile, I'm doing some crazy voice. I mean, I can't imagine if I was their age and I saw my dad doing this stuff. I mean, I have no idea what thoughts are going through their heads, and honestly, I don't really want to know. So, question 2: which D&D class is your least favorite to play, or do you not want to play?
I think monk probably. And I can't say that it's my least favorite, or I just haven't really had the urge to play monk, so probably monk.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd class. It kind of came in, and you'll usually associate monk or monk-like behavior with non-Faerunian stuff. So I can understand that for sure. Now, do you have a question for every question that I'm going to ask?
I do.
Oh, Jesus.
So we could cut it in half, so you could jump her out if you want.
No, go for it.
I was going to ask, what is a moment that almost happened in a game that didn't, that you kind of wish, like, if there was a what if scenario you could have pursued?
Oh man, there's so much. Well, I mean, I would go back to Finbin. There was a what if scenario where we were settling a new town. If you remember, it was Hadrick's Folly, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember.
Folly.
Yeah, and the group was like almost split. I know, like me, Steve, and I think Tom, maybe Nick, and then the rest, like between settling here and building a town, and the other side saying, why would we want to settle a town? Let's go to that pirate cove and just set up base there. And I wonder what would have happened if either we split or if the party had decided, hey, we're going to go to this pirate cave and use that as our base of operations. So that'd be one that I'd pull out. Question 3. What D&D spell would you most like to have in real life minus wish? No wish allowed.
Oh, yeah. God, there's so many. This is the first one that comes to mind. I like the ability to change shape and stuff. I just think that'd be really cool to kind of like polymorph into something else or some other look, or to walk around as a guy for a little bit. Like, it'd just be kind of cool because I'm a people watcher, so I could like observe people but be like right next to them. It sounds kind of creepy, actually.
Sorry.
But I would love it.
There you go. I like it. Well, all right, so I'll give you 2 more questions, and then I'm gonna lightning round it through the rest. All right, so what's your next question?
All right, so you as a player, do you enjoy some of the more political intrigue? Like, would you enjoy it, like, if there were NPCs that you could try and, like, I don't know, like even Black Widow, like with Milo? Or do you prefer more of like the ragtag group trying to overcome like the bad guy? Like, what sort of, like, I don't know, kind of genre would you add on, I guess, to your D&D game that would speak to you?
I would say, just based off the different sessions that we've done and campaigns, exploration is a big one. Like, I like being like traveling to somewhere and the things that happen along the way. That's what, like, some of my favorite memories are, Blee Bluff and Key Hill and stuff, where we're traveling on a ship and it's like this contained area where we have our little battles, our little conflicts, and then we reach somewhere new and we explore it. Now, the danger of that is you can lose the main plot line sometimes, but I like that exploration and kind of being confined but free to talk, free to have those social encounters and little things that happen. There's nothing more exciting to me than when you plop down in a city and there's like 15 landmarks on it, and people can kind of go their separate ways and explore different things. I like that a lot. So that's probably one of my favorite types. So, all right, back to the tag. Sarah, what is your favorite D&D monster?
A mummy.
That's right.
Unless that's not a monster.
No, that's right. It was the mummy. I keep forgetting that you want. Well, didn't we settle on something like a lich mummy or something?
That's what I would want to be. But there's something so exotic about that, and like the ritualistic part of it. And then when you get into like all the organs that are removed and put in jars. There's just something, I guess I like the ceremonialness of it, as well as the fact that they're kind of scary and just rare and very cool. So
definitely. All right. Your last question, make it a doozy.
Yes. So, what has been your favorite relationship in the games that we've played together?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's got to be Finbin and Mal. Like that was. I mean, it's so hard to explain, and that campaign was rife with great interpersonal relationships. Whether it was Tom's character, even Nick's character, and my character had a kind of burgeoning relationship. Mina, your character, and mine had a very antagonistic, but it was fun. It was real fun antagonistic relationship. But when it comes to Finbin, this very kind of uneducated barbarian halfling that got really excited about such simple things, and Mal, this like wizard, super smart, very kind of in control, and just that dichotomy between this really like intelligent being having this personal relationship that grew. Like it wasn't immediate, and that was the coolest part about it. It was, I think we worked together on a puzzle or something, and that kind of was a spark, and then this just relationship bloomed from it. It was absolutely extraordinary. I cannot put it into words how cool of a feeling it was to have that relationship. It was really something else. It was great. So, all right. So lightning round.
I'm sorry.
No,
can I ask
you asked your last question. There are no more questions.
Just a little tweak that harkens back to some of our early podcasts.
All right, go ahead. Do
you think that, so you and Steve also have a really good broship. Do you think that relationship, there was a little bit of bleed that helped you guys become friends? Or do you feel like that just was like, you guys just jive together, and then you also jive together in real life, and that's just the way it is?
I'd like to say there was bleed, and maybe there was like some post bleed that the relationship in game led to a closer relationship out of game. But honestly, like, yeah, I think it was just kind of a fated occurrence there, where you had two characters with these mindsets that it just kind of clicked, because I felt that click with plenty of people in the group. It was just that was just a special relationship. And if that was the case, then, we would have seen the same thing with Milo and Rod, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a good connection there, but certainly not to the level of Finbin and Mal. And looking back, Brooke and Finbin had a really close relationship as well. So I think there might have been some bleed afterwards from in-game to post-game. But I'd like to look at it as just, the D&D gods smiling down on us and saying, yeah, this is going to be a special moment.
Oh, I love that.
All right. So lightning round here. We're going to go like 3-word answers, something like that, and blast through. So what's your favorite NPC villain that you've encountered or created?
Oh gosh, there's been so many really good ones. How do I pick one? I really.
Doot.
Oh, God. Okay, I couldn't pick one. I'm sorry, guys. I'll yell it out later. How's that?
Next question: has one of your characters ever died, and what killed them?
Yes. Usually it is me killing them because I get bored. For some reason, like my DMs usually almost, and my teammates are really good at protecting my characters. So like even if I tried to off one, mission. like she would somehow be okay. But I take that as love and because I have a really, really great group. But always in the past, it's because I'm like done with the character, and I don't like to just retire them because it feels like a loose thread, so I kill them.
All right. I see that. Next question: what's your best Nat 20 story?
So my favorite one is when we got attacked by poop monsters in Hedrick's Folly. And then an NPC died, and Mina was just like wanting to live the faith so much. And I know she drives you all crazy, but she prayed and she prayed and prayed for this little NPC because we couldn't afford to lose morale, right?
I was so mad at you. I was so mad at you that you brought him back. I hated that NPC. What was his name? Like Christian or something?
Yes.
Oh. He was the worst. And you rolled a 20, and Lathander himself comes down and saves his ass. I was furious. I could not believe you did that. I can't believe you pulled it off.
I know it should not have happened, but there's a part of me too that loves the whole faith aspect of it happening, if that makes sense. Like she believes so
story
hard
wise, it was great
that it came meta and rolled me a 20.
Well,
so,
it got you a statue in your honor, so you should be happy about it. All right, so I'm going to skip the natural one story because no one likes to talk about natural
I don't have
ones.
a good one anyway.
So what's the highest level you ever played a character to?
12.
12, nice. What's your favorite magical item?
Okay, I don't know if this exists anymore, but there was a cursed item that was a mood ring, and it would play music based on your mood.
That's awesome.
So, like when you're sneaking into the guy's castle, we did kind of meta stuff. It'd play like Mission Impossible music and stuff, and everyone else could hear it. So, like because it's cursed, you can't get it off. So you're kind of like toast. You had to go along with it and try and calm your emotions.
Very cool. If you had an in real life alignment, what would it be?
I'm probably lawful neutral to good.
Wow, what
I can't say I'm 100%.
Neutral?
I'm very lawful though. That's the thing. Like I follow the rules, but I will speed a little bit, but only like 8 over. Like
that's not lawful. That's like a neutral good or a chaotic good.
Maybe I'm more neutral good, but I do like to follow the rules and stuff. I just find them more comfortable to be within than outside. So.
Lawful neutral would be like, well, we only have so many resources, so.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm probably neutral good then.
All right. So what's if you had to date one of your characters, which one would you pick?
Honestly, I'd pick Sejan because she's probably the most loyal. All my other characters, well, Rushka maybe. I might date Rushka, but I just don't think she'd be smart enough for me. Sorry, Rushka.
Nice. Is there a character you want to play but haven't had the chance to play yet?
Yes.
I mean, we all have a stable of characters.
Yeah, I have stable. I don't know, I still love playing a good cleric, and I want to play another one, and if I have one on deck, in case something happens to Rushka. So
nice. Are you a dice goblin or a dice minimalist?
I'm the worst. I think I'm a minimalist, but I'm a goblin.
You're a goblin.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't need any more. And then it's like, oh my God, they light up.
All right, last question. What rule or mechanic have you never quite wrapped your brain around?
Oh my God, grappling. It drives me crazy.
It's always grappling.
I always have to double check. Like, do I do this once or twice? And I'll get it. But and I love using it too. I love being like beefy Rushka and trying to wrestle someone to the ground and drown them or something.
Like pick up a creature last night, like a huge skeletal minotaur. Didn't you pick it up?
I did, and then I tossed it down on its buddy.
Yeah. I love the grappling, but you're right. It's a very difficult rule set to kind of wrap your head around. But awesome job, Sara. You have answered the D&D tag. Well done. But let's get into our last post of the week. It comes from somebody. It's not that person though, so let's say it's Rupert. All right. Missing parent syndrome dead end. So I'm DMing my own homebrew campaign right now, and I've had this plot point set up for a PC of mine from the beginning of the campaign. She is druid. Her mother was too. At the start of the campaign, the mother has been gone a very long time when she was a baby, but never heard from again. Thing is, I'm just drawing a blank on this one. I basically need some inspiration. What would draw a young gnomish mother away from her family for decades? General ideas would be appreciated. And that was from Shooting Skanks. Okay. All right, Shooting Skanks. I apologize for not getting your name in there in the beginning, but there you go. So the old parent gone missing scenario. All right, Sara, why did this gnomish mother decide to skip town?
There are so many reasons. She was, indentured to someone else. They let her come home and she had the kid and then she had to leave, or she's wanted, or, she had to go on a mission to fight a dragon. Like, there's so many things that you could do, but I would recommend that whatever she did be like a worst case scenario for the character, or something that would help the character whose mother, this is their mother, help them learn something, achieve something, or open up their world in a way that's really, really cool. So she was in a Scheherazade sort of situation where she was the only one who could keep this dragon satisfied. He let her go for like, I don't know, like a week to go and give birth, and then she had to leave again, and she's telling tales and entertaining like this whole time just to keep the family from being eaten, or the village from being eaten. Like there's so many ways. It just depends on whether you want this character's parent to be like a hero, a nobody, a spy, an outlaw, and then also what that impact, most importantly, focus on what kind of impact do you want to have on that character and their trajectory throughout the campaign. So
I like the idea of using one of your heroic tales that you just mentioned, Sarah. Like that's the story, like, that they've been told by their father, or, the grandparents who are raising them, or whatever, that their mom went off and did X, Y, and Z, or the only one to keep the dragon at bay. And then that's the personal story. And then they finally track her down, and she just really didn't want anything to do with the character. And like, imagine what, as a player playing a character, and that's one of your personal objectives, is to find your mom, and then you find your mom and you find out that she's basically a deadbeat mom that just didn't want to bother with you, and what effect that would have on you as a player. Holy shit.
Oh my
like
gosh.
that would be so harsh, but I love the idea of it. I love the idea of turning things on its head, that the whole game you're thinking this person's some hero that saved the town or whatever, and then you find out not so much. But that if you really want to mess with your players a little bit, that would be a good way to go. Otherwise, maybe one of the more heroic deeds that Sarah mentioned might be a bit more up your alley. But
or
hopefully,
the twist is they were told that they were a hero and they turn out to be the BBEG. So.
The BBEG, yes.
Can you imagine going against your long lost mother as the
I love
end?
it. I love it. I love the turmoil involved in that. But that is going to do it for us this week. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was a really great episode. But remember, if you want to send in your questions or anything you find on the internet, you can send them to questions@PotomacRPG.com. Check out our store for merch at teespring.com/store/PotomacRPG. If you'd like to support the Potomac RPG podcast, you can find us on coffee.com/PotomacRPG. And lastly, you can follow us at Potomac RPG on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Quick disclaimer, I suck at social media, so you're not going to see a whole lot, but we're there. But thanks for being on today, Sarah. A lot of fun talking to you about this. Thank you to the rest of the Potomac RPG crew, and of course, all of our wonderful listeners out there. So for the Potomac RPG podcast, I'm Adam.
I'm Sarah.
Till next time, keep those dice rolling, keep those stories coming, and
never stop playing. Do you like it crunchy or smooth?
Personally, I prefer smooth, but I'll eat both. Are you a crunchy girl? Is that what you're saying?
I'm a crunchy girl.
Girl. There's nothing wrong with being
Pepsi
crunchy.
too instead of Coke?
Like, oh no! Oh, are you kidding me?
Okay.
It's Diet Coke all the way. Like, no way. Pepsi can bite me.
Friendship repaired.